This episode is brought to you by the RVA Podcast Network. Find more information at rvapodcast.org.
We do not own the rights to anything or any music that's heard during the duration of this podcast. Also, a lot of these shows will have explicit content. So if you are not a fan of any cursing or profanity, you may want to walk away, but that does not mean that every show will consist of such. What's good, y'all? It's season 5 of the Past BT Pod with your host, BT. We have a new season here, and it's time to get this show going. As you all know, we talk about sports. Sports won't be as big of a carrier this year. I think we'll be carrying it more towards the stuff, and predominantly on the sports side, you'll be hearing more from the musical aspect, but we will still be talking about technical. We'll be giving you the video game content. I will still be going over the ass of the week. We'll definitely be passing the message. You'll be getting an angel number, and you'll get quite a few gems. So sit back, relax, take your time, don't waste your time. This is the Past BT with your host, Brian. What's going on, y'all? Episode 321 of The Past is here. I'm your host, BT. I was unsure or uncertain of what I was going to do today because I've been very unorthodox with recording. I know the next couple of weeks I have some shows lined up, so I'm looking forward to those, and that will kind of get me out of the zone and hopefully get me back into the zone. I've been back in my creative space. I finally uploaded a blog after almost a month. If you want to check that out, that's over on brightay1982.wordpress.com. And I'm not going to sit here and give y'all a lot of the fluff and hoopla. We have quite a bit that is and has gone on in life and just in routine. So we're going to jump right into the stories, and I'll share what has been happening and what I've been catching up on, or what's been quote unquote new to say the least. And we'll kind of let the show, as the term goes, we're going to let the show free its mind, and the rest will follow. As I always do, since this is episode 321, we will do our angel number. Oh, before I forget, I will be, I'll give the audio update. We're using, last recording I used GarageBand. Love GarageBand. We'll stick with it through and through. I decided to kind of take a step back and return to the roots, or return to the primary home front of audio and using Audacity. So hopefully this will help get the audio a little clearer and a little more crisp. So we'll see, based on just sheer trial and error, what we come up with. But I always like to give y'all the outlook, or the somewhat outline of what's been going on or what is going on. So we'll put that into the flow of the show, and we'll start it off with our usual angel number. And I didn't have a chance to record yesterday, but if any of you were or were not aware, yesterday was April 3rd, 21, which was 4321. It generated a lot of conversation, and yeah, just wanted to bring that up while I'm thinking about it. All right. Have you ever been stuck in a situation and you wish that someone would make sense of all the misfortunes happening around you? You are on the brink of giving up, and the fact that you feel like you're being stalked by number 321 is adding more fear in you. You are talking to your friends and telling them about the number issue, but they tell you about angel numbers and what the message is behind number 321 and why you encounter it almost everywhere. The message from angel number 321 is encouraging you to venture into unknown territory, as to experience new things as well as have growth. You also need to be perceptive and look beyond the surface in any situation before tackling it. Angel number 321 meaning has number 3, number 2, and number 1 as its components. Did not even put that all into the equation until we are reading this now. You have been promoted at work, but you have to move to a new workstation in a different town. You are even reconsidering if you should take up this new position. The message from your guardian birth angel is for you to take up that challenge, venture into new territory, and make new friends and relations. Angel number 321 shows that these new friends are going to bring a significant change in your life and you will experience growth. This new position will open more doors and opportunities for you. It will take you places because you work hard, and determination will make all of this possible for you. Go out and make new friends, attend social events. Some of the people you will meet there will play a big role in bringing positive change in your life. The attributes of number 3 are being outgoing and friendly. Create bonds that last with people around you. Have foresight and balance. Those are the attributes of number 2. Whereas number 1 is all about taking initiative and making things work for you, not sitting on the sidelines, but being proactive. Your angel number 321 is also telling you to have a clear and deep understanding of a situation before embarking on it. Instead of starting on a project blindly, take your time and research. Write down your plan and how you will execute it. Your insightful nature is that you will make things work for you and you will be happy with the end result. If you fail to plan, for sure you are planning to fail. And it's that ending is very, very key, because that's a message or a statement that I found myself sharing more often with friends in what I've recently been doing of learning planning and taking on a bit of a more plannable role and plannable routine that I normally wouldn't do. But lately it's been helpful. And I've found that what works for me is what I'm going to do, and what I've made to kind of present itself as the best opportunity. So that was a very spot on yet valid view of where I'm at and what's been going on new in my routine and or world. Like I said before, the shows will be back on a regular rotate again. I just, and it's me being, as y'all know, I always like to keep it real and give y'all the real deal of what's happening or what is not happening behind the scenes, and just kind of make it be relevant to what the podcast is about. So I've been watching sports, but I've been catching sports on a whim the last couple of weeks. Or, well, I didn't say the last couple of weeks, within the last week. So when we last recorded our show, I did, as soon as I hit stop, I believe all of the big trades, well, not even big trades, but the big waivers or free agent waivers happened. LaMarcus Aldridge, not long after the show, LaMarcus Aldridge was picked up by the Brooklyn Nets. And then Andre Drummond was picked up by the LA Lakers. The Lakers right now need Andre Drummond because, to say without saying it, Drummond, with Anthony Davis being out for a good period of time, LeBron, no one's really given a timetable. There's a possibility he may be out for the rest of the season, but that hasn't been really solidly confirmed, but it's been talked about. It makes Drummond come in as a very key component to their possible championship run. Not just because for them it's not just a playoff run. It's actually they're trying to go, win back to back. And it would definitely be a big thing, because if you look at it, LeBron, kind of went through this in Cleveland, and he went through this in Miami, where, year one is the rough year. And then the following years, it's, championship or nothing. And I think this year it's said without being said that Father Time is just hanging out like, hey, I'm here, just letting you know what's going on, just in case you forgot. And you can see it in the way this team is still trying to keep the pieces together. Like, they really didn't do much in the off season, which I think a lot of people were waiting for that to happen, but I'm kind of glad in hindsight it didn't. And that then, when I say all, let me backtrack, not off season, but before the trade deadline, they really didn't do much trade deadline, and they kind of put the time on looking at it as, we're going to wait for Cleveland to officially waive Drummond. And as soon as they waived Drummond, I think after 5 p.m. on Sunday, they were able to pick him up off waivers. So that was a big move for them. I have an article. it kind of is a self-told article as far as what it's addressing, but it's mainly talking about the off season this year, or not even say the off season, but just making sense of the buyouts this year between Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond, and LaMarcus Aldridge, who are, they're changing the landscape and made like a very interesting splash in free agency this year. Note to self, go back to water. It's and this art, like I said, I'm not going to really read this article in its entirety, because if you look at what both teams needed and where things were going right now, Brooklyn needs that added piece to, in case Harden, Durant, or Kyrie aren't able to fully be available for playoffs. You have those guys who can at least come in and kind of do their part. It was such a big uproar because even down to Blake Griffin dunking in a game, it was like, oh my gosh, it's the first time Blake actually dunked, and he can dunk. I don't know that he just wasn't happy in Detroit, because I mean the Detroit trade with the Clippers was very kind of, the writing was on the wall when it happened. Like if you watch basketball, you kind of knew what it was about. So that was how that all played out. Right now, Drummond has been playing a good amount of games, but he's missed. He's going to be out a couple of games. Well, he played his first game after joining the team. He had like a toe injury. They kind of sidelined him, and they're wanting him to play not at 100%, but they're wanting to get the best out of him that they can, barring the injury. I think right now they are second in the West behind Utah. And I mean, on the East you kind of have Brooklyn, Philly, and the field. That's kind of been like the script that we're watching as this all has played out. I didn't have articles for these stories, but I didn't realize it until after I was like, oh, let me hit record and go ahead and get the show up and going, that the Final Fours, we have our championship teams for both the men's and the women's game. Now, for the women's game, I can't remember the first game, but I do remember watching a good bit of the UConn and Arizona game. And Arizona was one of the few teams that had UConn's number this year. And they were able to knock them out of the tournament. So Paige Beckers, I'm probably pronouncing, I think it's Beckers. I don't know where I want to make it Beckers because of the BU, but Paige Beckers was given the player of the year, and she's the first freshman in women's basketball to get player of the year, which I think was awesome on her part, because she actually had a pretty good freshman campaign. It even has sparked conversation, and I haven't looked at really any big stories that have said this, of giving the consideration that she could leave UConn early, like a freshman or sophomore year, and actually go in the WNBA. She's that good, and she could pick up on the game that quick. And it's kind of like that wait and see thing. Like, and that's also if the WNBA is even considering or open to that being an option. So there's that story. And then, which I didn't even realize or correlate these two players together, Paige Beckers and Jalen Suggs have kind of known each other through school, both going to big schools in Minnesota. And Jalen Suggs has been able to kind of go on a nice path in, Gonzaga's run, where Gonzaga played against not Houston. Who did they play? Because you had Houston, you had Baylor, you had against UCLA. I was like, I'm going to remember the team. They were playing against UCLA, which generated some questions of wondering if UCLA could pull off the upset, which UCLA was very close to doing so. As the game goes and as the script goes, one play makes one big moment. And that's literally what happened the other night, where the player from UCLA, he shoots a shot in the paint, comes off the front of the rim. He gets his own rebound, puts it back in. The score is tied at this point, and there are still a couple of seconds remaining on the clock. One of the players from Gonzaga throws the ball into Suggs. He dribbles it down the court. As soon as he crossed half court, he just let a shot off. And as soon as he made it, as soon as it left his hand, it literally hit the back of the backboard. I was like, oh, bank opened late tonight. Like late open. Like it was a nice bank. And it hit right off the backboard, perfect part of the square, and nothing but net. And Gonzaga went crazy. A lot of fans were hurt by it because there was quite a few people who put money on UCLA. And the even more interesting part was this game went to overtime. You had Kevin Love, who was, supporting his former school. I don't know if I want to say alma mater because I'm not sure if he graduated from there or not, but he did go to school at UCLA before going to the NBA. And Suggs let it be known that he's the real deal. So you now have you have Gonzaga playing against Baylor, the game between Baylor and Houston, it was no contest. Houston was an interesting team because one of the first players who stood out to me from them was Quentin Grimes because I remember him playing for Kansas. And it just didn't work in Kansas, so he went to Houston. And the first half, at least a bit of it that I did catch, Baylor kind of had the game in their control from the beginning. And Houston was trying to make a comeback in the second half, but because of how Baylor played, they were already so far ahead that it was it would have took a lot for them to come back in that game. I'll say it that way. And it was very evident and very relevant in how this game played and how it all transpired overall. I'm one of those people who now I will say this. Let me go ahead and put this out there now. I'm not sitting here saying that Baylor has to play the perfect game or Gonzaga has to play the perfect game. But if there's anyone between the two teams that really needs to show it, it's Gonzaga. Because Gonzaga has had multiple chances to reach this point. And they somehow, if you go back to about 10, maybe 15 years ago, Gonzaga was known as the Cinderella team. Now people know Gonzaga's going to come with it. But it's how good is Gonzaga going to show it where it matters most. Even down to, there are certain teams that have made, that solid, undefeated run and then made it to the tournament. But then they get in the tournament and it's well, we didn't, if you were going to lay an egg, this is not the place nor the time to do it. And I've watched that happen multiple times with a lot of, teams or a lot of the schools in the big dance. And this was one of those examples of, I'm just hoping Gonzaga doesn't do that again. So I'm really, personally, I'm pulling for Gonzaga on this, but I'm not taking anything away from Baylor either because this is their second actual chance of getting into this point or making it to this stage of the tournament. So, like I say all the time, I'm definitely going to be looking forward to it. I'm certainly going to be keeping my eyes open as to what transpires from this. We're now going to get into stuff, which is probably a new record for me in sharing these and doing these podcasts. But like I said, it's a little different. I'm still getting back in the groove of getting organized and getting stories because I also have other things I'm trying to get organized. While I'm at this point, I will go ahead and give like I said, I always like to use the stuff time to kind of get my personal update. I'm still continuing my flow and my part with, my coding and learning coding. And that's been amazing. That has been different, but it's been very receptive. Any friends who have taken time just to say thank you or show any positive support, thank y'all. You really don't understand how much I value it. Also, we are in quarter number 2. So I will, as soon as I finish this recording, I have work that I'm supposed to do that I was supposed to finish last night, but I didn't. So it's likely going to be a lo-fi and grind night to just get what I need to get done in fulfilling my, my book or my, information that was given to me for planning and preparing. Cause I have a lot of things that I personally want to get done that I have not gotten done. And one more thing before I forget, cause it did just pop up in my mind. I'm very grateful yet more elated that I am finally getting the notion and the idea of taking care of myself. At first I was on the fence about it and unsure if I was going to do it, but I'm finally taking that plunge and doing the part that I need to make sure that I put myself in a better position to like grow and build. And if I want to do that, it requires me doing things that I normally wouldn't do. And I personally am okay with it where it's not as bothersome as I normally would see it being. And that for me is what makes it a lot different than usual. And I'm really receptive and open to that for once. And I'm learning how important that is to like really get me in a better position to like build and grow and improve upon whatever or wherever life is taking me or does take me. So I just want to share that part before we go into our stuff. Our first story is an interesting one because Amazon looked at or considered the option of opening discount stores to offload unsold electronics. So I guess there are a lot of electronics that Amazon has that they want to try to sell and get some type of a profit off of. And in all fairness, I would not be surprised. Amazon has been examining the idea of opening discount stores or outlets selling unsold electronics and home goods at steep discounts, Bloomberg has reported. The products will reportedly be sourced from inventory in its warehouses, and the company has weighed opening permanent locations and pop-up stores in malls and parking lots. Malls I don't see because ain't nobody really, people, I don't think people still go to a mall, especially here. Like I couldn't tell you the last time I personally walked around or been in a mall, but that's me. The stock would consist of smaller items that don't take up a lot of space, like home goods, toys, kitchen items, and electronics, but not clothing. A 2019 report detailed how Amazon destroys millions of items it can't sell, ranging from TVs to diapers, though Amazon later pledged to donate unsold goods. It's a way to be able to clean out the warehouse and get through inventory without having to destroy it. Amazon has reportedly dropped the idea for now because of the pandemic's impact on brick and mortar retail. Plus, it just launched the fresh grocery store chain and wanted to focus on that. Amazon already has a considerable retail presence with over 500 Whole Food locations, 96 Amazon Fresh, Amazon Go, and other permanent stores, and 7 mall pop-ups, Bloomberg noted. Discount electronics and home goods stores will be a considerable expansion of that as they represent 2 of the top consumer goods categories on its website, according to Statista. Given the opportunity of Black Friday and other sales, it's easy to see consumers flocking to the stores in search of bargains. A good thing for sales, but not during a pandemic. So in really reading this and understanding it, and I'll give like a really small but clear story behind it. People are still going to stores, but people aren't going in stores as much as they used to. Folks are going to stores if they need to buy things and it's there and it's available to do. However, if I'm in a position to get an item, like for me, and this started for me years ago with buying food. If I can buy food and have it prepared so that when I get to the facility that serves the food, that I can just pick it up if I've already paid for it or not and leave, I would rather do that than to have to wait in the venue for the item to be prepared and then leave. Because that's adding time on that I could be doing other things. From the electronic perspective, and I did this like I said, the first time I really did this was last year. I already was doing ship to store or site to store early on. I think I almost want to say, that might have been last year. Oh, okay. Well, I guess I was, because I'm looking at one of the items I bought. It was a lamp, and when I was looking for this lamp, I was trying to make sure I could get the lamp and get the table, but somehow they didn't come out at the same point. But I got it, which was cool. And I got the lamp, and I can remember going into this business. I'm not going to say the business name, but I went in, placed, I think you had to like search by your name or something like that. And then they would make the item available through the carousel, and you would just pick it up and you'd walk out. Everything for me is about convenience. Convenience and simplicity go a long way. The other example I have is there's another company, like the headphones that I wear for the podcast. I was getting them from a store. The store had curbside. They were starting the curbside process. So with doing curbside, it opened up an avenue of folks may not be able to physically come in and walk around the store to look for things, but they still have the option to get an item and just come in and pick it up. And I think at that time, I picked up a couple of items because I picked up that, and I think I picked up my Apple dongle that is probably still lost. I don't know where it is. And a mouse that I use now, which I love. I use it for my tablet, which I would tell anybody, and this is no shameless plug. If you are looking for a convenient keyboard mouse combo for your tablet that is simple and not gonna like break the bank, I would get I think the mouse was $30. It's the Logitech Pebble. It literally feels, to be honest, it feels like the Motorola Pebble phone when it was out, but it's a mouse, and it doesn't have the little Bluetooth dongle part where you got to go through that whole hassle. Literally, when you turn on the mouse, as soon as you turn it on, it asks you, you'll set it up to connect through your tablet. And then once it's connected, you're good. You don't need an extra piece. And then the keyboard that I got, I think I did and I'm wanting to say the M380, but I might be wrong. But the keyboard that I have was a godsend too, because it's for me, buying keyboards, when I first was looking for Bluetooth keyboards, I was always all over the place as to what keyboard was worth buying. And then I would find certain ones that they work for what I need, or for how I personally am as a consumer. The one I have is the Logitech K380, and it is probably one of the quietest keyboards I've used. And that's the other part of why I like the Pebble. But I know I'm talking about, I'm promoting and talking about all this information, but as far as it goes with the Amazon perspective, Amazon probably has a lot of product that they can't move because they're moving product. It's almost as though they're moving product against themselves, which, I mean, to say without saying it, they don't have any control over the market or the consumer, because the consumer is going to, as a consumer, the consumer will always go to what's going to be convenient for themselves. And I mean, if you also look at it, Amazon, your battle is, if you're buying stuff, it's not like you can say, hey, I want this item to be delivered at said location and not pay shipping. Whereas with Best Buy, I can say, hey, I want this item sent curbside, and I'll pick it up whenever it's available. I don't need it today. I'll eat or I'll live without having to pay for the shipping and handling. Or you can do what they do with Target. And yes, I know I'm using company names after the fact of me saying I wouldn't use businesses, but with Target, I think it's a notebook that I'm looking at, that I got introduced to. It's a black and red notebook, which I am definitely looking to get and use soon. But it won't be I thought it would be my next journaling option, but I have two, and one I'm going to definitely, one I'm definitely excited about using. So I want to use that one first. But I was able to, get that and have another product. And once those products had said free shipping, I could just ship them to myself and didn't have to pay for shipping and handling. Or if the product is physically in store, as most people do, you buy it in advance. And then when you get to the store, you can just pay for it. You've already paid for it. You just come in, verify you're the person that is purchasing the product, and then just leave. So yeah, that's something that is making it a bit of a challenge for Amazon's market and way of sales. So it will be definitely working through that one by far. T-Mobile is going to be the first carrier to make Google Messages its default SMS app, which I didn't realize that companies could have default SMS and apps or SMS programs. Google Messages is very interesting to me because I can think of a couple of avenues with this. First of all, there was Google Hangouts, which no one really talked about. Then there's Google Voice, which includes the messaging feature. And I believe I talked about it on the podcast a while back. Of the rich messaging system, which was if your Apple's feature of this is called iMessage. Anyone that uses Apple devices, they live and die by iMessage, because you could have no phone service and still be able to text people who have iMessage. You could FaceTime people as long as you're on Wi-Fi. That's how, and and the same applies with texting, but that's how it kind of became a thing or becomes a thing at times. With Android or with the Google side of it, if you have no service, that's it, you're hit. But if you don't have service, like for me, I have people who I will give my Google Voice number to if they really are trying to contact me and they have that ability or that capability to text or even call me for that matter. So it gives or extends that added option to that opposite, or it provides a different option on the table as a consumer. So with this being the case, they're looking to do this by the end of the year. So Google Messages platform just got a big boost from T-Mobile, with the carrier announcing on Monday that the RCS app will come standard on all current and future Android phones. That's a significant step forward for what's been a long and sometimes tricky quest on Google's part to make rich communication services ubiquitous across the Android ecosystem. This is going back to what I just said earlier about I've shared this on the podcast before, but I'm sharing it now because it's something that's kind of been like the make or break for a lot of people between Droids and Android and Apple is the ecosystem. Like a lot of people think that, or are looking at it as Apple has an ecosystem and Android doesn't. And I'm like, no, Android has an ecosystem too. It's just not talked about as much because it's treated or handled very differently. So how this is going to work is it's going to be Google and T-Mobile will be bringing richer messaging with RCS to millions of Android customers. You can send and receive better quality photos and videos, chat over Wi-Fi or data, which I just talked about, share reactions, and enjoy more dynamic group chats. T-Mobile was an earlier adopter of the protocol back in 2015. By midway last year, it also became one of the first carriers to implement a full standards-based interconnect with messages. That meant T-Mobile subscribers could take advantage of all the protocol's headline features, including typing indicators and read receipts, when messaging people outside of the U.S. According to the carrier, it will complete its latest switchover by the end of the year. Google also shared an update on its work to add support to end-to-end encryption in messages. Again, another feature that Apple just has had for a few years. And I'm not, and when I say these things, I'm not saying it like, oh, y'all just get into the party. It's just eventually companies are going to be doing what other companies are doing because they all are trying to get the consumer to go along with the product. The company says the beta rollout of this feature will continue throughout 2021. End-to-end encryption over RCS is currently only available through the Messages app, not other RCS compatible software. Messages isn't the only Google product getting a boost from T-Mobile. As part of the new partnership, the carrier will also start promoting Google's Pixel phones as well as dropping its own TV service in favor of YouTube TV, which I kind of saw that coming because like they want to get some way to get folks outside of the obvious Google, the obvious YouTube connection. So I've talked about Clubhouse before. I may give a Clubhouse rant in a second, but I'll see how I feel. They started a new format. Now they're in a position to kind of defend it, where they kind of made those companies like, say, the Slacks, the Discords, the Spotifys, the Facebooks, the LinkedIns, the Twitter, all kind of run their own course and make it a little different in what they're providing as social media. So Clubhouse, as many of you may or may not be aware, has reached like its 1 year anniversary. I've told this to people before. Even an app being a year old is still considered an infant. When you look at companies such as Facebook, Twitter, like Twitter has been out, like my Twitter page is 13. Well, this year will be 13 years old. And I've had, like, Twitter's been out probably for about 15 years. But Clubhouse had an incredible year and one most of us would rather forget. The live audio app launched during the pandemic gained more than 10 million downloads for an invite-only iOS app and succeeded to the point that most every social platform wants to copy it. Congrats to Clubhouse. The company now faces its biggest challenge yet, however. For one, the pandemic is waning and people might be more interested in real-life socializing instead of conversations facilitated through their phone. Anyone advertising their backyard as the next great Clubhouse competitor has a point. But for the people who do end up wanting to talk to each other online, they'll soon have a lot more places to do so. In case you haven't kept up, Twitter, Facebook, reportedly, LinkedIn, Discord, Spotify, Mark Cuban, and Slack have all launched or are working on their own attempts at social audio. The space is about to get busy. The great concern for Clubhouse is that, as I postulated in February, social audio could follow the same trajectory as Snapchat Stories function, a brilliant social media altering idea that goes on to live in every app to the determinant of the upstart that pioneered the format. And social audio is shaping up to go that way. With the threat growing, it's worth looking at where Clubhouse is most likely to run into problems. But first, what does Clubhouse have going for it? It was the first to social audio, and that's something. Already, it counts millions of users who come to Clubhouse solely for social audio content. And that includes headline-grabbing names like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, and other celebrities. Tech CEOs are even making announcements in Clubhouse, including Slack CEO Stuart Butterfield, who announced his company's own copycat product to the app. The app generates news and discussions that's something much trickier for other companies to clone. And they're going to get more information about this. I'm not going to read this entire article in its entirety, but I just want to share with you all, like, Clubhouse knows what they're doing, but Clubhouse also knows in what they are doing or have planned to do. They're going to get competitors to, like, think a little bit with what they're doing and how they're giving the content to listeners or to folks who want to have a voice. And I'll tell my story of this, and I'm not going to make too much light of it, but it's, since I'm here and I'm in the space, I'll do it. You sometimes find yourself put in positions to take breaks from places, and the break isn't as long or as short as you think it's going to be, but sometimes the break gives you time to understand why or what is being done. I've found myself and seen that a lot of disconnecting with people and with the internet is bettering me for a better version of myself. Some people are not going to be fans of it. Some decisions, when you make them, you don't know or don't understand what caused this to occur, but it can sometimes end up being done and not being known as to what caused it to go the way it does. I'm not going to give any names. I'm not going to give any context because it's not necessary. And I'm not giving anybody any more clout or attention than they deserve because that's not where I'm at. All I'm going to say is I have a lot of big things that I am really working on. And with today being Easter, and I think the biggest thing that I have been neglectful of or leaving out is the value of, being resurrected or being able to grow, because it has been a bit new and a bit different. So I just wanted to share that. I don't want to get too early or too far ahead of what my fave part as far as passing the message, but I wanted to at least put that message or make that statement before I go too deep into the rest of the topics. I may swing back around to this for pass the message. I was, like I said, I know I said earlier before I even started, I was like, I might talk about it. I'll see how I'm feeling, but let me go through a few more topics and then we'll kind of talk about this from that point. June 7th, and now it makes sense. So Apple finds very unique let me be clear. Like, I know I always say Apple finds unique ways to do promotion of product. No, Samsung does too. When Samsung did the unpack where they showed the drop of the liquid and it made it look like a puddle, like a water come back. I'm not gonna lie. If I didn't have like a full Apple conversion like I'm in now, I would easily get into the Samsung path of what Samsung is doing, because one, it's not going to cost it doesn't cost as much. But I also know with Apple, it's kind of like you're in, and someone said this before, and I always like to be clear, like, not all of us are like this. A lot of Apple users and a lot of Apple fans can can come off as pretty culture-ish and very like possessive or dominant of the plateau that they think is theirs, but it's not theirs, but they claim it to be theirs and it never was theirs to begin with. Just, it's not like, to say what I was saying, it's not that deep. And for some people it is, and it really shouldn't be, but I just try to make the process flow for what works for where I'm at and what I'm doing. And that's kind of what it is. But they did an image of showing a Memoji, a young lady, and you see her wearing glasses, and in her glasses you can see the calendar, and on the calendar it says June, but you can't really be sure if it's June or July, but you can realize it's June. And then under it says the 7th, and then on the top corner of it says 21 to represent the year 2021, and letting you know the actual flow for the calendar, kind of saying like, this is when our next event is coming up. So they've stated that the event will be held exclusively online. There will be no live venue. The site has been updated to reflect the announcement. The Cupertino-based company reveals very little clue about what will be revealed and will be discussed. Worldwide Developer Relations, Enterprise, and Education Marketing VP Susan Prescott says the event brings developers together and allows Apple engineers to connect with them. Prescott mentioned that they're working to make WWDC 2021 the biggest and best yet, with new tools and developers to change the way we play, work, and live. WWDC 2021 will have the same program structure, but it will be open for everyone to view. The keynote is likely a pre-recorded stream instead of recorded live on stage. Last year's WWDC event was watched by 22 million viewers and had 72 hours of video content. And I'm not putting a lot of investment into what's coming from this year, because they're going to give us some information, but they're not going to give a whole lot, because I think it's certain things that people want to know about, like what are they going to do new with the watches? What's coming with the next phone? Are we going to see any new tablets? Which I doubt. One model of the tablet may get a change. I could see a new MacBook coming. If nothing else, we may get some more emojis. Like, it's little things like that I personally am looking for or expect to see come from the WWDC event. So we'll keep our eyes open for that as it occurs. Music, I have been very, I don't even want to say distant with music, but I just have not really found any music that I'm like pulled in to say, hey, y'all need to check this out. And I just, it's not in a bad way. It's just nothing has really caught my attention this year to really be compelled to say, hey, I need to listen to this. A friend of mine introduced me to an album by DJ Babu called #MLVN. Check it out if you get a chance. It is definitely, like, listening to this helped me do a blog today, which I'm not gonna lie, blogging for me has been a little challenging, but it happens at times. So you kind of gotta, you learn and you live and you learn and you let the lessons lie where they may, type of thing. I started to listen to Rod Wave's album. As far as the new music that is just released, I haven't had a chance. I was going to listen to Demi Lovato. I haven't gotten around to it. And that's about it. Like a lot of other artists, getting in rotation or getting that time of listening to the new music Friday, at least for me, it's so many artists. And a lot of it is, I don't place that type of time to the side to just listen to music like that anymore. So I'm still going to be finding and making those times of doing AirPod escapes or music sessions, but I also am still trying to find that time to listen to other podcasters and get, that proper listening across the board too. So that has been a bit of a, I won't even say challenge, but that has also been something that I've been working through as well. So our Ask of the Week this week is one that I didn't think I would be doing as an Ask of the Week, but when this story has kind of come to surface before, and I kind of have, before I forget, I want to give an honorable mention, because I'm gonna share both stories. I want to be sure that I don't ignore one over the other, but I'm definitely gonna jump into these because wow. Sometimes you just don't know what is going on or what isn't going on around you. So there's a company called Real Water, and this water was pulled by FDA due to it being linked to liver failure. And the water plant manager, oddly enough, decided to go MIA once this all happened. I would read the entire article, but I think my favorite part of this article is, but on Monday, a lawyer for Real Water may have provided an explanation for the company's lack of cooperation. Real Water attorney Charles Lobello told District Judge Elizabeth Gonzalez in the hearing that he could not find the company's plant manager or lead technician, according to a report by the Las Vegas Review-Journal. There has been difficulty getting a hold of them. Separately, another lawyer for the company, Laura Ungaro, contradicted the FDA's recent update, telling the Review-Journal that the company is in fact cooperating with the investigation. I can't imagine how they could say we're not cooperating. Wow, let's just make all the noise. Good job. I can't imagine how they say we're not cooperating. We've done everything but stand on our heads for them. Anything and everything they want, we've made available to them. Real Water President Brent Jones, who is also a former Nevada state Republican lawmaker, released a nearly 2-minute video on the brand's website last week, in which she offered the deepest sympathy and concern over the events that led to the inquiry. However, the website now displays a message saying that it is down for maintenance and only offers links to a call press release, two water quality test spots, and his video on YouTube. This is like really bad because, and when I say it's really bad, I mean in the sense of, this is because I was my roommate and I, we talked about it a little bit because she shared the article with me. So shout out to Fred. If you listen to any Twin Talks, Armbands Anonymous, or MagFest pods, you've heard her on the show. She, and of course, my personal fave, WYD the Dick Pics. But I'm sharing this and I'm saying it because this is not a store, like you can't find this water like physically in a store. She had stated to me that, most of their service and most of their purchases are online, which, okay, I'm with it. But I would go on a limb and probably say if you go on Amazon right now and look for it, you're not going to find it. Cause they probably, whenever the FDA gets involved, especially when it's food and it's anything that's being anything that's being consumed, you definitely don't want it. And I said food, but it's like the federal, I forget what it stands for, but whenever Food and Drug Administration, I had to remember because it's been a minute. Food, of course, even though water would be considered a form of food or nutriment. And the drug is based on, because we think about companies like Pfizer and all the other ones with the vaccine. So, yeah, it's definitely something that is surprising or catching people off guard. But I just hope they're able to get to a solution with this. That much is what I'm looking for out of this more than anything. The other story that I have, which I did list or have listed as Ass of the Week, is that Amazon made an admission to something that should not have been known, but also should probably still be a little obvious, because Amazon drivers are placed on a very strict process with how they handle and get packages to people. So because of the vehicle and how it tracks them, they have to find ways to be creative in having to go. And having to go is in using the bathroom. Amazon admits its drivers sometimes have to pee in bottles. Drivers can and do have trouble finding restrooms. Amazon has posted an apology to Representative Mark Pocan for a tweet last week denying that it makes its workers urinate in water bottles. The controversy started with a tweet by Pocan blasting Amazon for its treatment of workers, a topic of particular public interest, as workers at an Amazon warehouse in Alabama were voting on whether to unionize. Which I got some insight on that because I was learning, or being very inquisitive of learning, if folks that work at a facility like this, if they wanted to become a union or unionize, how would it work? But it's almost like you would have to go through a lot of loopholes and a lot of red tape that it would just become very challenging. Paying workers $15 an hour doesn't make you a progressive workplace when you union bust and make workers urinate in water bottles. You don't really believe the peeing in bottles thing, do you? Which Amazon responded back on March 24. If that were true, nobody would work for us. Recode's Jason Del Rey reports that Amazon's aggressive response was encouraged by CEO Jeff Bezos, who had been frustrated Amazon wasn't pushing back hard enough against its critics. But the tweet turned into a PR fiasco for Amazon. The next day, Vice published a story with the headline, "Amazon denies workers pee in bottles. Here are the pee bottles," and included a photo of bottles with an Amazon worker's urine in them. Vice noticed that this was a common topic of discussion at the subreddit, and it's a specific subreddit listed. Yeah, this is just nuts. Like the fact that it's gotten to this, that it could or possibly be seen as getting to this point tells quite a bit about where the stature and the status of Amazon is. I'm hoping that they can get a resolution to this, and that's kind of really all I can give on that story. So the message, pass the message. One, first and foremost, I will improve on getting better audio, or not even audio, better topics, because the last few weeks I have gotten a story to you all, but not gotten content to you all that is of proper standard for Brian. And I don't like that. So I will be passing this message, number one, of saying that I will improve upon how I deliver my podcast content. Because I don't want it to turn into early on in just April where I'm not giving you all the best content for podcasting. Next week, like I said, next week and the week after, I will be a guest on a show next week, and I will have a guest on the show the following week. And so I'm looking forward to that being a thing for the podcast. This story, and I'm not even going to say the story, this part that I'm about to share, I really don't want to share, but I'm going to share it. Social media turns people very crazy without people really being crazy. Well, Brian, what do you mean by that? And where are you getting this idea, analogy, theory, or picture that you're painting from? A lot of times a story can, so certain in your life or in our lives, something can happen and we really don't know the full what happened and how it got to the point of it happening the way it did. And once it's happened, it's too late, and you can't really, to say what I was saying, you can't really dig your way out of it because it's gotten, like, the cut just got deep and you can't figure it out. And I've had, and it's kind of interesting, like, I've had disagreements with friends before, or people that I've met before, or people that I've known before. And the disagreement goes however it goes. If I hear or see from the person, great. If not, oh well. I've had, and I mentioned this earlier in the podcast. I've had my Twitter page for over 12 years. I have seen every form or fashion of Twitter go through every form or fashion of its growth, its demise, its disconnect, its lack of presence, all of those things. I've maintained and or managed friendships that I thought were great friendships, but then diminished to the wayside just due to time or due to things just not working out with the person or people involved. When an action occurs and you don't know anything about the context behind the action, you make your decisions behind that action. This is what I did a few days ago. It caused me to lose a friend that really wasn't a friend. And I'm really not understanding I'm really not realizing or thinking to myself why I'm putting this into a conversation. But I'm sharing it only because I want people really to understand and get the meaning of protecting their brand or protecting your space. A lot of times things will happen and you don't know what's going on, and you may or may not even care to know what's going on because it's not your business, nor is it your lane or avenue. And I get that. With that being said, it really comes down to, and I've said this a lot on the podcast, and it's why I'm really looking forward to having more people come on the show to teach me how to improve upon this. There's nothing wrong with being good at communication, but when you become an effective communicator, that puts you into a different echelon, into a different category. lately, effective communication has been my top priority. And I'm finally beginning to see why it's important to effectively communicate. Making the decision that I made to kind of blind instinct pull the trigger on not talking to someone, not knowing the full context of what happened, blew up in my face. And I'm willing enough to say that it should not have gone or went the way it did. However, things happen. You can't control it. You just move forward. Again, I'm not going to give any names because I'm not in a space to give names. But the person may not ever listen to this podcast, and I'm okay with that. But I just want them to know that it's no bad blood. Now, if it still is, you're not a fan, don't want to talk to me, and you don't want to hear this, or you want to come back with a response or an address to discuss it, by all means, I have no problem. I'm not, and it's not even in the space of me saying like, where I'm at. I'm pretty much in the last 5 or 6 years, I've made it my goal to not keep my page private. I don't tweet as chaotic as I used to. I don't use social media as chaotic as I used to. Even down to my newest page on Facebook being a more protective space in the fact that it's there, but I'm not using it with the wrong intention or with the wrong plan. I'm pretty much available, and I'm not in a hideout, like catch me when you catch me type of thing. And that's really the best way I can say that without saying it. And I'm only saying this in this context because I don't know, even after the person made the decision of blocking me, which I'm okay with because I'm all about mutual agreements. I blocked them as well. I don't have the willpower or the space to deal with anyone who can subliminally say a message and not think that I would see or know that the message was about me. And it's, again, like I said at the beginning, I've been on Twitter and I've seen Twitter become like, I've seen Twitter when it was only the 140 character limit. I saw Twitter when they gave you the option to do twit longer and different apps to like extend your Twitter typing. I've been through all that. So getting more characters and you can type your life away, cool, great, whatever. I don't even like now. I think because of how I've found and gathered information in using Twitter, it's just somewhere that I like to kick back and talk with folks to catch up on life once in a while. Like I got a couple people who I DM really just to see how they're doing, because it's just where I'm at with that program. But yeah, just the message that I'm going to pass along, because I know I said all of that and I still didn't pass a damn message to none of y'all. But the message that I want to pass along, or the thought that I want to leave with you for this episode is protect your space. I'm not here to say protect your peace, be his peace, protect your energy. I'm not going to say any of that. Protect your space. And in using that term of your space, you may or may not realize it because you have a lot of space or can own a lot of space and not even factor in how important your space is for you to maintain or uphold in its entirety. So I'm laughing because I'm sitting here looking at the audio and I saw the part where I cracked my knuckle and I could see literally the sound effect, just that one little part pop up. So I'm just tripping off of that. But anywho, make sure you know how valuable you are to yourself, because sometimes others could care less, and you genuinely have to be okay with that. And if you're not okay with it, that's where self-reflection, self-assessment, internal growth, betterment, et cetera, all comes into play. So that's what I'm telling y'all today. That's what I will be, implementing to you all, is just protect your space. And on that note, we are going to wrap up this show. It looks like I'll be in a new amount of hours. I think this show should be able to fit in my current stature because I took some chill breaks, but for good reason. And we're gonna get back to this content because y'all know it's about to be spring is showing out a little bit this year. I'm gonna say that as an added bonus. Spring is showing out because it looked like we're gonna have a very interesting summer, especially with the vaccine, because a lot of people are choosing to get vaccinated. Some people are not choosing for good reason, along with adding in the factor of there will be a lot of activity coming up this summer, if not in the fall. I'd rather have it happen in the fall because then it'll be near my birthday and I'm okay with that. So that's what I got. Y'all stay positive, stay blessed, and continue to pursue the constant quest to be the best version of yourself. Y'all take it easy. You have made it to the end of yet another episode of the Pass BT Pod. I hope you gained something or walked away with some worthwhile information, whether it was related to any of the information provided about sports, about music, about technology, or possibly my personal fave, the Pass the Message. We want you to come in with an open mind and an open heart and walk away with something that's going to benefit you and carry you through your day, through your week, through your month, through your life. And that's the main objective here on the Pass. So I hope you were able to receive that. If you are looking to get find a good place to host your podcast, you can check out buzzsprout.com. And if you're also looking to invest in a microphone, a lot of people have their angst or their differences towards it. But I'm currently using the Blue Yeti X, and I've been using it for a little over a year. And it's still to this day one of my best investments I've made. And if I always give this as my closing tip. If you are a creative and you have the space to create, do not do your least to give your best effort towards what you're good at doing. Until next time, y'all take it easy.